When she was 3 months old, I remember that I was just giving up. I was gonna give up drugs. But it was more so I was giving up on life. I remember that that day that I was writing a suicide letter and I was by myself with my daughter, ready, just ready to end my life.
Action.
My name's Nick, and this is my story. I grew up in a small town, a real small town outside of Cleveland, Ohio. Both my parents are together. I have a sister. Growing up, I dealt with my mom had untreated mental illness, and my father has untreated alcoholism. And when I was growing up, there was a lot of anger and uncertainty inside the household. Growing up, I used to race dirt bikes, play hockey, and I used sports as like my getaway from the anger and the hostility that always was inside the house. It always kept me outside of myself. So when I was growing up, when I played hockey, my dad was always my coach, and that's how he pretty much, I thought of a father from him. I thought of fatherhood is by being a coach, because my dad did more of coaching me than being a father. So the start of the drug use kind of happened with because I always used sports and my dirt bike to escape. And when I found that first drug, it accumulated to help me cope with the emptiness that I was feeling of myself. So as I started using drugs more frequently, that's when I started getting in trouble with the friends I was hanging out with. And as my friend groups started to grow up and I matured and I started to realizing what I wanted to do with my life, which was to play hockey and to move on and progress in that, I finally had the opportunity to, when I was 16, to move to a small team. It was a 21 and under junior hockey team, and I was one of the youngest players that made the team. So I ended up moving down there, and I was put in an apartment with 3 other random people that are on the team. And the progression of my drug and alcohol use went farther and farther, because I met a new group of people that are all older than me, and they've already been doing drugs and alcohol for however long they have been. So I decided I fit perfect, because they do the same amount as me, or more, and I fit in very well there. And at the time, everything was going so good. After a year went by and I decided to try out for another team in a different state. And when I moved to Michigan, I met a whole another group of people that did even more and drank more and used more than my last group. And the following year, I was still on the same team, but I lived, instead of getting an apartment, I did this. It's called living with a billet family, which is a family that takes you in. And I lived with another player on the team and his family. And that he ended up being one of my best friends, but at the time, he was probably the worst person that I had in my life because he introduced me to new things and really, really progressed my drug addiction and alcoholism because he was big into sports. He still played, but he was a very depressive person, and it kind of like grew on me because he was always angry and upset with life and wanted to get high. That I ended up starting becoming very depressed, and my outlet was to get high. And I lived with them for so long, and living with another family, like I felt so comfortable around his family because they took me in, and I felt so much love and compassion from like my billet mom and my billet father, and like it was like a mind-boggling experience because I've never felt like that before. Like I never had a mom that came and asked me about, oh, how was your day? Oh, how's your new girlfriend? And things like that. So even though I was depressed, like I was still feeling, I was like filling some kind of void with the people around me at the time. And when I was living there, I ended up getting a scholarship to go play hockey at a college in Indiana. And the next year was my first year of college, like on a campus where I lived there. And that was a real depressing time of my life. Because at that point, I was drinking every day, I was using drugs every day, and it was the only thing that like made me feel motivated anymore to accomplish things. And I got in trouble with the school and actually got kicked out for having drugs in my possession while I was there. And I decided before the school even started to just go home. So when I came home from college, I got an apartment with one of my best friends from home, and we both were single at the time, and we just thought it was a great idea to work together, drink together, and that's all we did for the next couple of years was drink and do drugs together. And as that progressed, I found a girlfriend, and I was drinking and drugging at a heartbreaking rate to me, because at that point I couldn't control anything. It was at the point where I wouldn't go to work if I didn't have any drugs in my system. And I found out my girlfriend was pregnant, and I figured that would be the turning point in my life where I would stop using drugs and everything would be okay. And as soon as the baby was born, I literally couldn't stop myself. As hard as I wanted to, I could not stop. And when my daughter was about 3 months old, I finally said I'm gonna stop. But it wasn't just me, it's because I pushed everyone away. I pushed away all my friends, my family weren't there. The mother of my child was at wit's end, and when she was 3 months old, I remember that I was just giving up. I was gonna give up drugs. But it was more so I was giving up on life. I remember that day that I was writing a suicide letter, and I was by myself with my daughter, just ready to end my life. And so my daughter was sleeping when I was writing it, and then out of some miracle, I just seen this little twinkle when she opened her eyes, and she was just laughing. And I told myself I couldn't do it because of her. And after that happened, I took all the drugs and alcohol out of my life. But when I was doing that, all I did was take the drugs and alcohol out of my life. I never did anything about it. I thought everything was going to be okay. But I was still at that same point where I just didn't want to be alive. All I did was just take the drugs and alcohol out of my life, and I was still miserable. And I was that way for about 6 months. And then I just had one bad day at work, and I used again. And I ended up overdosing. And that is what brought me down to Florida, because no one wanted me in their life anymore unless I got help. And I didn't know how to live. I didn't know how to be sober. I didn't know how to be happy. And I decided to get help and come down to Florida. And that was the hardest thing. That was the hardest decision of my life to make, because the only friend I had left in my life was my daughter, and she couldn't even talk yet. And I couldn't leave her, but I did anyways to get help. When I first got down here, I was still upset with myself that I was here. And it took a little while for me to realize why I am here. And it took one person to say something to me about that I'm an addict, an alcoholic, and I either do something about it or I'm gonna die. And that's when I decided that I'm gonna do something about it, because I don't want to die. I want to be there. I want to be a father. I want to be a good brother. I want to be a good son. And that's when I decided that I need to do this. And I want to do this. And that was the biggest thing for me, was that I wanted to do this. Not for anyone else, or it was for me. And that's when I started to put the footwork in to do this. And it was difficult, but now that I'm sitting here and looking back at it, It was the best thing I've ever done because now I'm happy. I'm moving on from the stuff that was holding me back, and from that was just killing me inside. And now everything's starting to look up. You know what I mean? Everything that I thought wasn't possible is becoming a reality. I finally have found the one thing I've been searching for, and that's peace within myself, which I never thought I'd be able to find it in my entire life at all. And I'm finally finding it. And I search for peace in life every single day. And I'm happy, you know what I mean? It's great. It's a great feeling. On top of me being happy, I'm finally feeling good about being a good father, being a good son. I get to be those things. I get to be the person that I never thought I'd be able to see again, or see at all, because it's just an unbelievable feeling just to know I can see my daughter and see her smile, and I can smile back because I'm actually happy. It's one of those feelings. It's undescribable.